The biggest mistake I see real yogis making, advanced yogis who are moving through the eight limbs of yoga, who have transcended just doing asana and are searching for something deeper, is that they focus on dhyana way too early. And dhyana could be correlated in Western terms with mindful meditation, which really is seeking to liberate yourself in meditation from all desires, thoughts, feelings, etc. And at an axiomatic level, this isn't a terrible thing, right? Like, wow, that sounds really good. We live in such a terrible reality where it can be very stressful. So being able to, access alpha, beta, and theta waves and be still for 30 minutes a day, that's a good thing. But the inherent problem with mindful meditation, and the reason the master yogis like Patanjali put it at number 7 on the list, because even though it's the eight limbs of yoga, it's really a hierarchy. And if you can't really move on to the next step very well until you've accomplished the previous step. For instance, unless you can maintain a full lotus position for 45 minutes to an hour without any pain, you are going to have a much less intense meditation practice. I personally know this because I injured my knee one time being an idiot while skiing, and I immediately noticed, because I had to sit in half lotus, that my meditation practice went down by like 50% in terms of visualization and pratyahara and dharana and those limbs of yoga. And even my pranayama practice, everything just totally plummeted. And this is what all the master yogis all throughout time would say. They don't say, sit in a chair because you have knee problems. That's obviously an accommodation that we are making for a modern audience or disabled people or whatever. But nonetheless, there's a system here that's based in a hierarchy. And so what a lot of mindful meditators are doing, and I want you guys to think about the whole kind of sphere of mindful meditators, is they are actually just becoming more of what they already are. Maybe they're kind of getting rid of some of their malignant emotions, some of the things like, Johnny used to be mean to his wife and now he started meditating and now he's more calm at home. That's great. But the whole point of the first 6 limbs of yoga is actually the purification of the body, brain, and soul. So that once you get to dhyana and samadhi, you are not bringing in unnecessary samskaras. Because when you look at someone who is meditating, if you just hop right into mindful meditation, a lot of the time you are, first of all, coming into it most of the time with a very rajastic or tamastic mind, a very active or inactive mind. So a lot of people fall asleep, or they're just kind of treat it as like a chill out hypnosis session, or their minds is frantically going everywhere. In a 30-minute meditation practice, maybe they have 5 or 10 minutes of silence or a nice focus, but the other 20 minutes it's thinking about their tax return, what they're going to do later, and all these other different things. And that wouldn't be necessary if the first 6 limbs of yoga were accomplished. Your mind, by the time you get to dhyana, if it's trained in the powers of concentration, if your body is open, if you've learned to breathe and you've learned to withdraw from your senses, it won't be very hard to sit there in that mindful state. Because the whole goal of mindful meditation at its core, once you hit a deeper level, is to become aware of awareness. It's the classic subject object divide, And if you're not doing that, if you're not accomplishing that or getting close to accomplishing that, most of the time you're further imprinting samskaras and becoming more of what you are. I keep saying that, but think of mindful meditators. Think of Silicon Valley. Think of all the people that are meditating. And have they really transcended the spirit? Have they hit that kind of samadhic, that Raja yoga, or the highest level of yoga that you can imagine? And this is why in India, and especially through the yogic system, you see a much higher rate of enlightenment and the ability to obtain mystical states than in Buddhism or really any other system, because they're following this protocol. A lot of other protocols throw you into dhyana and trying to hit these states of samadhi, but it's like someone who can maybe run a marathon, but they can just barely get through it. And then there's another person who's training and they have a plan and they're eating right, sleeping right, stretching, doing all the right things, and then they can just blow through and kill a marathon. They feel good while they are doing it. And that's how I kind of feel with this. The signal, if you hop right into dhyana, is off. And let me kind of walk you guys through the process and kind of the theory of the 8 limbs to show you guys why hopping straight to mindful meditation is not just ill-advised, but can actually be problematic and set you back for a while. So obviously in the yamas and the niyamas, we're purifying our soul. We're kind of getting all our moral codes in order because we're about to gain power. Once you kind of start with these 8 limbs of yoga, if one of those things is off, for instance, brahmacharya is not about seminal retention or about being a celibate or a virgin or anything like that. It's understanding the power of sex. It's understanding how sacred it is. And if you waste it, if you don't really tap into that and understand it at a deep level, then later on it could actually cause a lot of problems. For instance, as a lot of the famous yogis we've seen who have, inappropriately touched people or assaulted people or any of that stuff. And this is true in any dynamic, because when power starts to increase, what's going to come your way is a lot of money and sexual opportunities. So you have to be ready for that and to be able to push that type of stuff away, especially when it's unethical. Like I'm not, once again, advocating for, kind of that incel yogi mindset. So anyway, so we purify ourselves so that we're ready for this powerful journey, because if one of them or one of the subsets of the yamas or niyamas is off, then you're going to be off. And it's just the havoc you can wreak will only get bigger as you increase on this journey. So then we get to asana. And asana is really just learning to be able to sit in a full lotus posture, because it is the ideal for a powerful meditation. And obviously to feel healthy and live a long time, but really it's just being able to sit in a full lotus posture for 45 minutes to 90 minutes without that having to be a problem. So then we get to pranayama, and obviously asana. So asana cleanses the body. Pranayama cleanses the brain. But pranayama actually sets us up for pratyahara and dharana. And pratyahara, a lot of people are very confused about this. This is probably the most esoteric of the limbs. But what you're trying to do is integrate your senses, because our senses run wild, right? Like taste and touch and sight and hearing. And you can actually increase those and help them focus more, because in your meditation practice, you may be hearing something or something might be going on, and you can actually reduce that signal. You can actually turn it down. And the way that you do it, I'm not going to really explain it in this video. Subscribe if you want to hear me talk about these kind of techniques or that are in pratyahara. But a lot of the time, it's engaging things like the mula bandha and certain bandhas and connecting them to the senses in a kind of meditative manner. And this is kind of the start of power, the start of focus. And once you get the senses in order, then you can really be able to concentrate. But when we're thinking about concentration, though, one of the things that limits concentration, when we're looking at dharana, or dharana, whatever we want to call it, it's about the visualization of objects. In yogic meditation, it's mostly the chakras, and there's deepening, further levels of advancement on on the journey of being able to visualize chakras. But the number one limiting factor of being able to do that is actually being able to breathe a long time. So if I'm sitting in full lotus posture and I'm channeling the Sushumna channel, the red energy coming up the spine, and I'm seeing the chakras, I want to kind of be able to do it in a slow manner, especially if I'm adding a bunch of color and a bunch of other things. And from my personal experience, you need to be able to breathe a 1 minute inhale very easily without really any trouble at all, like just as easy as lifting your arm, and a 1 minute exhale to be able to go up and down through that sequence. And with proper pranayama training, that's no big deal. But once again, you can't really do very good in pranayama and have these deep holds without without being able to do a full lotus. And you can't concentrate on something without being able to do these long breaths, or even better, breath retentions. If you can do a breath retention and a visualization at the same time for a minute, that's actually some of the craziest stuff. And so you can kind of see the levels here. And so once your mind is able to focus, once you can transcend like your ADHD and the problems with dopamine in modern society, like this is a bigger problem than ever. Back in the day, a lot of these guys were trying to enlighten. I don't want to call people savages, but maybe poor folk or people who had no literary merit or like knowledge at a very deep level or experience in life. But so that was kind of the issue, right? Like we're trying to turn on the mind hard for the first time, but our mind is on. We've turned our minds on as a society, but we can't shut them off. We can't get them to focus on one thing. So we have ADHD medication and all this other crazy stuff. But when you're finally able to do that, when you finally get to dhyana, it's going to be no big deal. You're going to have to work out some kinks in the steps, but you're finally going to be able to contemplate awareness itself. And because your breath is so good and you've got control of your senses and you're able to concentrate and nothing's able to really distract you, you're really going to be able to move into that pure state, which is really the most sensitive state. You're very open in dhyana to all different types of spiritual energy and whatnot. And you'll be able to move on to samadhi. That dhyana, from what I've been able to tell on my own journey through the limbs, because you're never done. Let me just tell you. I feel like this wheel, it should be the wheel of yoga, because you just keep going. Because previously, when I've been very disciplined and focused, I've made it through this wheel before. I've like walked the walk for like 2 years and like gotten through all the steps and like dedicated 5-6 hours a day to just doing yoga and like being a part of it and living a very clean lifestyle and all this type of stuff. No digital technology, living out in nature. But then I look and I'm like, wait, I'm not shit. right? Like I'm just still a novice. I'm still an acolyte. I'm still learning. And so what did I do? So here I am doing these samadhi things and I'm like, oh my God, this is great. But then I look back and I'm like, I can improve my relationship with the yamas and niyamas a little bit better. I can then, once again, I can be a little bit more disciplined with my asana practice. I can really try to get into these more subtle states of body awareness and make it easier to access pranayama. And then thus the cycle continues over and over again. But really to get through the first cycle, you have to take it seriously. And then obviously once you kind of have them down, at least at a beginner level, if you can kind of go through the wheel one time, then you could pick certain things you want to focus on, things that you maybe like or important for you in life right now. If you are managing a household and a business and all these other things, you probably don't want to be in a state of samadhi very often because you're not going to maybe have, I don't want to say that ruthlessness or that edge, that power to be able to go out and execute in the way you need to. You're essentially preparing for death or like contemplating these deep spiritual things. And it kind of feels a little bit icky to be engaging in these things. And so you can kind of move up the wheel a little bit and be like, okay, I'm just going to focus on my concentration or on just on asana right now, or just getting my life together. And you can always hop back. And that's something that needs to be talked about more in the yoga community. That's where I'm at right now. I've been starting a family and like really doing real world things again. And so I'm not meditating in right now. I'm really just focused on, steps 1 through 5 right now. I'm dabbling in 6 a little bit by maintaining a daily practice, but I'm not doing an hour or 90 minutes or 2 hours a day like I was doing before. I'm just trying to maintain maintain my previous skill set until I have more time to really invest in it. And the easy example is like asana. Once you've become flexible, like let's say you achieve flexibility, the hard part's achieving. Like, so if you're inflexible and you want to be able to do the splits, you're gonna have to train your butt off, man. You're gonna have to go hard every single day or at least 5 or 6 days a week for a while. But once you have a certain level of flexibility, you probably only need to do, from what I've been able to tell and what I've done, I know a lot of other people do, 2 to 3 hours a week of, if it's really focused, like really good stretching, then you'll be able to maintain like 90% of your flexibility. Maybe some like weird esoteric stuff will go away, like twists and like really deep back bends. But other than that, you should be pretty good. And I feel the same way about the entire wheel, that you should maintain the entire wheel. I still do 10 or 15 minutes of mindful meditation a day, sometimes up to an hour. I'm about to start working my way back toward that. I am in the process of getting closer with some of my other online businesses to be able to quit my job and do these other things. So I'm finally going to be able to dedicate more time to all this. I'm excited because I'm here to share this journey with you. So let me know what you guys thought of this. Let me know how your path on this, on the 8 limbs of yoga are going. What are you struggling with the most? What do you want to hear me talk about in terms of the 8 limbs of yoga? What limb interests you the most? And of course, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.